Hi, Sid.
Hey,
Welcome to Better with Age. You're a man of many talents, including writing. I enjoyed your book, which I have here, for normal people. Perhaps a good place to start with is where are you? Tell us about yourself and what sort of clients you work with.
I'm in Mendocino, California, which is far north, about 3.5 hour drive north of San Francisco, right on the coast. It's a little town. I've been here for almost 20 years, moved up from Los Angeles. And yeah, I direct an ultramarathon and also work with clients in stress management. I'm a certified running coach and nutritionist, so it sort of all folds into one kind of how to be healthy and happy and in control of your life in a way that's living on your terms. So that's kind of where I'm at as a coach.
And what are your fitness regimes? What do you do?
Right now, I'm training the race I direct. It's a 50K. So it's called the Mendocino Coast 50K, and it's on April 19th. And I always run it the day before
Okay.
with a buddy of mine. And I have it marked, but then we go out the day before, run the whole thing with extra marking tape just to make sure that we're, making it easy to not get lost. And so I always think if I can get lost, then anybody can. So I'm training for that. So the reason I say that is because I'm doing more running than usual right now. Not a ton. Your listeners might be surprised that they assume I'm running a lot more than I am. Usually, I mix it up a little bit of rowing on a rowing machine, a little bit of stationary bike, more running, but a couple days a week of strength training as well. Full body TRX kind of thing, not weight machines. It's all kind of multiple. I'm not looking to bulk up. I'm looking to be functional and movable and flexible. So that's always my aim. I'm 56, so I want to do this for a very long time. I don't care about times of any race I've ever done. It's more just could I finish, do it again, and feel good doing it and have a good time. So that's where squarely I've positioned myself with regard to working with people too.
Okay. And do you train for other events? I mean, the other things that you want to have a go at?
Yeah. So I've done I think 4 or 5, actual, well, not including marathons, but ultra marathons. So other events. So yeah, I train for those and I love them. And again, same idea there too. So just how can I train effectively and still have 3 kids and a wife and a busy life and a job and multiple jobs and things like that. So yeah, it works out well, and I love the sport. And I've loved exploring uh, busting some of the myths around it. Hence the book. There's a lot of assumptions about who ultra runners are, and I think people might be really surprised at who runs my race, for instance. And so I've loved getting into that and really seeing how this can appeal to people who would have never in their million years think they could do something like this, and they do it well.
So let's dig into that a little bit because the normal person concept is quite interesting, which is I think what you just described with family and normal life. And you said a few things about a normal person can always be in training. Living well is a commitment, and anybody can do it, but you've kind of got to be reasonable about how you apply yourself. Is that fair?
I think that is, my point about that, and as you know, the book is separated into lessons that ultra running has taught me, and it wasn't until I got into that sport because it's so long, so it's not like training for a 5K, like it's a thing, and there's no doubt about it, it's a thing. But from me coming at it from how I would define a normal person is in terms of my context of my book is just a non-elite runner. I don't run with a watch, for instance. I don't upload data. I don't track my runs. I get out on trails. I go by feel. I breathe. I would use my breath as a marker of kind of how my stress is happening, a lot like that. The always in training lesson that it taught me was it doesn't work for most people who are living fairly normal lives to not live well. Don't eat well, don't sleep well, over caffeinated, super stressed, then train for a race, and they train like a bat out of hell. They go super hard. They probably don't enjoy the process, but they finish it. Then they go back to their lives of general too much stress and not enough health. So what I argued for and found in my own life that if I maintain a strong baseline of health and happiness and stress management day to day, whether I'm training or not, then the lift to train for something isn't from 0 to 1,000. It's from 100 to 150. It's a little bit more. And that allows me to do races and then come back to an otherwise healthy, happy life. So it's sort of lifting your baseline so that you don't have to jump so high to do these kinds of challenges. And so, yeah, start training now, not for a race, for your life. Then if you want to do a race like I do, you just ramp it up a little bit, but it's not a massive shift and they're running 70 miles a week. And I've talked to multiple people like, I did it, I hated it, I'll never do it again. I go, because you overtrained. In 30 seconds, I can tell that they overtrained for it unnecessarily because they read some book and some chart and some guy on YouTube who said, you got to do this and this, and they don't like it. And they're sore afterwards. And then they have injuries and all these kinds of things. And it's like, unless you're trying to win and you're a pro athlete and that's what you do all day, there's just no reason to do it at all.
Yeah. You mentioned you don't wear a watch, but I can't help but ask, how long does it take to run an ultra marathon as a normal person?
Well, when I have looked at times, because I've done races and I look at the clock there when I finish. Yeah. I did a 50 miler in, I think it was 11, almost 12 hours. I've done a few 50Ks in the 8 to 9 hour range. The last 50K I did called the Lake Sonoma 55K was like over 10 hours. It was a long day, and I wasn't in last, by the way. I thought I was. I kept going to aid station, go, am I last? And they're like, no. And I was like, I can't believe it. Anyways, and I didn't know I had been out that long. So I run with a phone. I put it in my pocket. So there's no timers. I don't have a running app. It's just in my pocket just in case. It's a safety bag. So I've got my phone in my pocket. I'm running all day. And it was a tough day, really hard course, humid, hot. So I've got about a mile and a half left, I'm guessing, because I recognize the terrain. You start to see cars around. I'm like, I think I'm close to the finish. And a good buddy of mine, her name is Sid, who was volunteering for the race, she's walking toward me on the trail. I go, what are you doing out here? She goes, they sent me out to find you because they were wondering what the hell was going on. And I pulled my phone out of my pocket. It was 10 hours and 40 minutes. And there's like a text from my wife going, are you okay? Because I told her probably 8 or 9 hours, 10 hours and 40 minutes, no word from me. And it was just, are you okay? And I texted her, it's all good, all good. I had no idea. I was just trucking along, listening to a song in my head, not in AirPods, just for whatever reason, there was a song on repeat in my head, just running along, and came across the finish line. And yeah, it's a sport. It's a sport.
I want to ask what is going through your head. I mean, presumably for something that lasts 10 or more hours, you're going through different kind of thought processes or cycles or whatever. But how do you manage your the kind of standard monkey mind that we all have during that length of time?
I love that. That's a great question because it cycles. And I will tell you that, I've done a few now and I have some experience under my belt. However, it's always terrifying. It's always getting more going, why in God's name am I doing this? 3 in the morning, I'm cold. On this particular race I just mentioned, I had grabbed the wrong pair of shorts, didn't notice, and there was no drawstring. So I had duct tape at one point, taping my shorts. They're falling down the whole day. It was just one of these things. But begins with terrifying stress. And then the reason I love ultra running, at trail running particularly, is I call it in the book, wild attention. You cannot zone out at all, you'll fall. So there's a naturally built-in presence that is required to be in the wild, which is that you're not on artificially flat surfaces. You're on roots and rocks and hills and potholes. And if you don't pay attention, which by the way, I just went on a 3-hour run 4 days ago and bit it, came back with my knees bleeding because I was looking at the whatever. And I specifically do not run with AirPods or headphones, nothing. And part of that's because I want to pay attention. And part of it is because I like being that disconnected when I'm out on trails. I like not having technology in my head. So it cycles. I go, this is horrible. It's the monkey mind, the chatter. Then it goes to a song. For some reason, every time I run a race, there's one song. It changes, but there's always a song that's on repeat and it kind of rhythmically gets me through. So I'm sort of singing it in my head. Then it goes to breathing. Then it goes to appreciating what's around me. Then it goes to feeling crappy, then and it kind of cycles around, and it's a really interesting meditative kind of experience to just kind of watch all that flow in and flow out as it goes, and then you talk to people on occasion. It's a pretty great thing.
Yeah, and you said in your book that the closer that we get to what is natural for us as a species, the better we live, and exercise is a natural function for us all. How did you get to that point of view? How did you find that?
Yeah, my first book's called Approaching the Natural, which the whole basis of that book was that thesis, which is that we are still animals. We pretend that we're not, but we are physiologically, and I believe mentally too. And, I live in the modern world. I get on airplanes like anybody else. But I think that if I come from that standpoint of I'm an animal, so yes, I'm getting in a car, but if I sit at a desk for 8 hours, that's not natural. So what if I get up every hour and do 10 push-ups or walk around the building a little bit? What if I just, infiltrate a little bit of movement? Yeah, I go to the market to buy food, but what if I'm buying food that's closer to how we evolved as human beings and eating that most of the time? And yes, I'm going to go out and do junk food like anybody else. But in general, how am I socializing? I mean, we think social media is social. It's not social. This is social. We're talking. We're having a conversation here. Leaving a comment on YouTube is nothing. It's a waste of time. You know, I don't know if you've noticed, but on my YouTube channel for the last few years, and I don't have a bunch of followers, but I turn off the comments right when I put the video up. I turn off the comments. I don't care. Watch it or don't watch it. If you like it, good. Go home and use it. If you don't like it, then curse my name and go. I don't want to hear the comments. You don't want to hear them. So it's got to think of like, how do you come at your life naturally speaking? How do you move? How do you eat? How do you sleep? This whole intermittent fasting thing's interesting. As a nutritionist, all the deep dive on autophagy and all the eat when it's light outside and don't eat when it's dark outside. That's intermittent fasting. That's because we evolved that way. When it was dark, we can't see at night. And so you eat during the day and sleep at night. We overcomplicate these things and it's a nightmare. So yeah, moving is natural to us. No wild animal exercises, by the way. They move around. So to me, trail running is closer to that thing. But I'll be honest with you and your listeners. When I'm training for a race, it's not natural. We didn't move that much. If you look at a gorilla, for instance, they're chilling, then they move a little bit, but then they're chilling a lot. And so we're pushing it in a way that is stress inducing. And then when you add that on top of jobs and family and the news and social media, no wonder that chronic diseases are on the rise. So that's kind of the model I'm trying to fight against.
Yeah. And I can see behind you the backdrop with the small steppers. And you said that through small steps, you teach clients and listeners to include more of what is natural to them in minimally stressful ways for sustainable change. Is breathing part of that?
It's a huge, huge part. Yeah. When I became an Oxygen Advantage breath coach, it overtook in importance even nutrition. And the reason is because, as a nutritionist, I was giving people recommendations and they wouldn't stick with them, like diets. And so I was like, well, that's not working. So my first book, again, Approaching the Natural, 1 chapter is on food. Everything else is non-food because I realized quickly that this is a bigger picture than food. So breath work is the first thing I teach clients so that they can learn to manage their stress. Then as I gently lead into discussions of food, it's not so triggering and reactive. And I teach them my small steps approach, which isn't too small either. It's teaching them how to identify and be aware when their stress is getting too much and learning how to back off. The hardest thing, and for me too, is to do less sometimes. I've had clients recently where I go, I need you to eat junk food on Saturday. And I'm a nutritionist. And the reason I do that is because they're doing exactly what they've done 80 times before they came to me, which is militant. And they're getting, guess what? Stressed about food. And I go, you got to blow off some steam, man, because you're going to quit like you've done already 10 times. We've seen this movie before. You're going to go on a bender because you're holding on too tight. I have to sometimes purposefully and forcefully stop myself from exercising because I feel that militant gene. I should get, and I'm sore and I'm not feeling well, let's say, or something. And I got to do it. And I go, no, I'm going to sit on a couch and not do that. And that's an awareness place to be in. That's a stress managed place. To notice those things, you have to be in a stress managed place. And I've gotten better at it. I still battle, but I've gotten better at it over time.
Yeah, that's tough, I think. Reading your book, you use 2 breathing routines, I think. Wim Hof, we probably all heard something about a few years ago. My daughter bought his book for me for Christmas a few years ago, and I tried everything, and I thought it was great. But limited as well in some ways. But you also use Oxygen Advantage, which you're coach for. What are they? For those who don't know much about it, what are they?
First, I'll tell you that it's been about a year that I have not done Wim Hof.
Okay.
So I did it pretty much every day for like 7 years. Until I got into Oxygen Advantage, I learned and trained under Oxygen Advantage because it was more applicable to my coaching with people. It was more stress management. And also to teach you how to breathe in a stress managed state all the time, even when you're not thinking about it, sort of changing your behavior pattern around breath. Wim Hof doesn't do that. Wim Hof is an exercise that you do. There are definitely limitations with Wim Hof. I do the cold tub. I did this morning. I do like that a lot. The science on it, not quite there yet, but it's exciting to see kind of how things are evolving. I think there's a lot of cult of personality about this. People are, sort of taking the pill, drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. That's not my bag. And so with Wim Hof, it's sort of limited in its thing. And I think just given what I know, there's a lot of placebo a part of that. I'm just going to be straight up about that. Oxygen Advantage, on the other hand, is so focused on training and retraining your body how to breathe more naturally. Again, I've said recently, I was just on Oxygen Advantages, Patrick McKeown's show. If I ever revise my first book, there's nothing about breath in there because I just hadn't gotten there yet, approaching the natural, but there would be how to breathe more naturally in the context of the modern world. So in short, Oxygen Advantage is entirely through the nose. It's in and out through the nose pretty much all the time, unless you're super stressed. If I'm on a trail and I'm heading up a hill, I change to mouth. That's naturally. Wim Hof is a hyperventilation model. So you're taking in a little bit more oxygen, but you're blowing out a ton of CO2. And you're then holding on the exhale I've done it for 3 minutes, held on the exhale. Anyway, you do 4 rounds of that. Breathe in about 40 times. Like that on your last exhale, hold for whatever, as long as you can, and don't push it too hard, and then do it again. Oxygen Advantage is some exercises of holding the exhale also, but there's no hyperventilation beforehand. So you're not hyperventilating first. So your holds are 20, 30, 40 seconds, but you can feel that CO2 rise. That's the thing that triggers you to breathe, CO2. So you feel that CO2 rise in your bloodstream, and you're kind of pushing that so that in general, you're not so sensitive. You don't feel like you have to breathe all the time. So Oxygen Advantage is slowing down your breath. It's lightening and softening your breath. It's taking less breaths per minute and learning how to do that most times. So I'm not exaggerating, an hour to 2 hours of breath work per day, but it's not taking a break from life. It's in my car on the way to work, in my car on the way home from work. It's sitting at my desk writing my new book, and I'm coming into my breath. It's 10 minutes before bed. It's, with headphones on instead of watching a movie. I watch a movie, but then I turn it off and do a little breath work. So it's kind of scattered into my life. It's getting up and walking to my car, breath work exercise. So I kind of put it in there because it's been such a huge game changer for me, especially in terms of ultra running.
Yeah, it's very accessible. I mean, it's certainly a small step that you can take, and I found that it becomes more than a habit. You just start doing it, and you continue, and you don't really think about it anymore. But one thing that surprised me, and I hadn't thought about it before, but you in your book talk about carbon dioxide as being something other than waste. I always kind of grew up with the idea you get rid of it, but you're talking about becoming used to it, and actually it's not a waste product at all.
Well, it's both. So it is a waste product. It's the waste product of energy creation. Oxygen goes in, we create energy, CO2 comes out, and that's why we exhale it. But this is the short version. Because we breathe and because we're stressed, because we breathe too much and we're mouth breathers, and we're breathing out too much CO2. And this is where it gets complicated and interesting. So I'll try to break it down in a very simple way. And this is why Oxygen Advantage is so cool for me. But CO2 is the thing that when there's enough of it in the bloodstream, not too much, but when there's enough of it, it actually triggers the release of oxygen from the blood into the tissues. So what we're looking for when we're breathing is oxygenation of the tissues, not the blood. When we put that little thing on our finger, we're reading blood oxygen. We might say 99%. Oh, amazing. We're not getting it into the blood. I have measured every time I do a breath workshop or with clients, they always measure 95 to 99% blood oxygen. They're always fine. I go, well, then in theory, you don't need breath work because you're getting out of oxygen, but it's not in the tissues. And the thing that releases it into the tissues is enough CO2. So what Oxygen Advantage does is it creates a breathing pattern where your baseline of CO2 is high enough, not too high, but high enough to trigger the release of oxygen, and you're also expelling it as a waste product. So it's both. The hitch is that CO2 is the thing that triggers the need to breathe. When you feel out of breath, it's because of CO2. So again, if you're super sensitive to CO2 because you're used to it being so low, you feel like you need to breathe long before it's enough to trigger the release of oxygen into the tissues. So by desensitizing just a little bit, you exist with a little more CO2, you're better oxygenated, and then all the things are better. Digestion is better, sleep is better, anxiety is better, stress is better, fitness is better. So that's why I start with breath. I'm getting a little deep in the weeds, but the sort of extended exhales triggers the vagus nerve, which is part of that autonomic nerve, the rest and digest side. Digest. So as a nutritionist, that's why I'm like, well, let's do the breathing first and sort of get digestion rolling and all the functions of the body working really, much better, lower stress state. Then when you're eating, you're actually processing the food better. So it's it all starts from a stress management place.
And did you come to sport later in life? Am I right in understanding that?
Yeah, well, I was always a recreational runner, I would say. So, but I'm not pro runner. I would think did a 10K a couple times, did a half marathon when I was 38. I ran my first marathon when I was 45. I ran my first ultra marathon when I was 46. I'm not an elite athlete. I didn't do sports in college. I was a very recreational runner, 2-3 miles here and there once in a while. I've probably done 3 10Ks my entire life. So yes, I came to this level of running late, 46 years old, my first ultra marathon. So, and that was only because I ran 2 marathons when I was 45 and didn't like them. I mean, there's no judgment for me. There's bored. I just did a half marathon. There was like a fundraiser in town, in my little town, a half marathon. So I did it. It was so boring. It's just running on the same path, and I don't run with headphones. So then I was just like, this is why I would run with headphones, because it's just nothing to look at, and I don't run a watch. So I'm not paying attention to pace. I was just like, let's get this over, and so anyway, so late in life, no, this is not a, professional, college athlete who then now can do ultra marathons. Completely not that.
So what was driving my question is just to try and work out how much understanding and getting better at breathing has helped you to do what you've done later in life.
Well, the breath work has helped me to continue doing it.
Okay.
But when I first got into marathon, the 2 that I did when I was 45 and the ultimate, I was not into breath work. I know nothing about it. I was just doing the thing. Now, I did hire a coach for my first ultra marathon. This guy who lives in Indiana, whatever. And I just said, can you help me for a couple months just to get me started? So he did. Guy named Matt Flaherty, super good, pro runner. But he knew that I'm not a pro runner. And what he taught me, and I mentioned him in the book, because I was so much about following a chart exactly, then he was like, if you're traveling this weekend, Sid, just don't run. I was like, oh, wait, you can change things up. Like that was like a thing. I was like a huge revelation. He also said this, he said, slow down. And I said, well, I run 8.5-minute pace for a few miles. He goes, yeah, not for 50. So now I'm running 12-minute miles. I could run faster, but he helped me get on the right path, as I see it, of thinking in the long view. I'm not training today for a 3-mile run. I'm training today for a 50. I have to train my body to run slower so that I can run longer. Then it allowed me to go longer runs with no problem. I mean, it's small kids at the time. I'm coming home after a 14-mile run and with them all day. That was it. When I was training for marathons, I'd be on the couch for the rest of the day. I mean, just exhausted, And so it really changed the way that happened. Now, breath work came in, perfect timing, coincidentally, but like a year later, Wim Hof, and that sort of started me thinking about breath. And yes, I believe it is a player, along with nutrition and sleep and all the other aspects, of allowing me to keep doing the sport. I direct an ultramarathon. Every year I have over 70s finish it. Every year I've had this race, it's his 8th year, I have over 70s. If you're telling me that a 74-year-old woman crossing the finish line of a 34-mile ultramarathon isn't the greatest thing ever, I'll argue that. And she comes across, great race, goes off and has a beer. I want to see me in 20 years. That's so cool. So that's my goal.
I think we get to know ourselves better through exercise, and if that's a lifelong journey, then all the better. In your book, you talk quite a lot about life lessons. Is that what you mean, that you're constantly learning just because you're pushing yourself a little bit, but you're also finding the natural routines, the way to kind of work with nature to get yourself into better condition?
I do. I think that it is a way to stay aware. I think pushing ourselves is a way that we can be present and evolve. It's funny, I get into the cold tub like I did this morning, 45-degree water, Fahrenheit. And it's basically meditative. I do oxygen advantage breathing, very light through the nose. Now, this is cold water. And I always joke, I go, you want to meditate? Talk to me about meditation when you're sitting in a 45. We meditate in a comfortable home with heat, blanket and a little candle, and we meditate. Then we go on and live very stressful lives. The idea is, can you adopt a somewhat meditative, aware, present state in the context of your normal life? That is what's interesting to me. I have zero interest in sitting on a pillow in front of a freaking statue of a candle or whatever. I want to know, can I do this when I'm at work in a contentious meeting? Can I monitor my breath and keep myself calm? Can I do it on a trail run? Can I do it when I'm driving? Can I kind of adopt this kind of level? And it's a struggle, but that's what I'm working for. And so it's that pushing ourselves and getting into discomfort is how we find out our limitations or lack of, or assumed limitations that aren't. How we learn more about ourselves, how we listen to our bodies. Everyone goes, listen to your body. Do you know how hard it is to listen to your body when you have social media on? It's almost impossible. So getting to a place where you can actually pay attention, where you go, my calf is I shouldn't run today. That wasn't me 10 years ago when I ruptured my Achilles. It was, I have to run because it's on a chart and I ruptured my Achilles tendon because I wasn't in a place where I could even listen to what was going on. And I've evolved since then. I'm not perfect. I'm still struggling, but that has actually changed. My wife would back me up on that. I will not run, or I will go very slow, super slow. People would make fun of me slow. And I had to get over that. Like, okay, fine, but I'm still running at 56. And there's a guys my age who have guts, with high cholesterol. They're on medication. I'm on zero, nothing over the counter, no painkillers, no prescriptions, nothing. I feel good. I sleep well. I'm hanging out with my kids and wife. So those are kind of my goals. But again, I'm not trying to win races.
Yeah, and versatility is a part of that. It's a theme you talk about quite a lot, pushing yourself enough, but not overdoing it, and not being a slave to a routine.
Yeah, my dad was military, was in the Air Force, and I think he was pretty disciplined in that way, and got to the point where he hurt himself, or he wasn't backing off. He would push it. The day he passed away, which was 2 years ago, he swam that morning. I mean, he went for it. He had to. He just had to swim. And he told my mom, that was a really bad swim. And then he died like an hour later. So this is a personal thing, but I have been very conscious of that in me. There's that little thing in me that goes, I have to, that robotic thing. And I've had to make a very conscious decision to not work out some days, or to go so slow.
And one of the things I'm finding through doing these podcasts is that older athletes who sometimes have less ego than they once did, find that their biggest competitor is themselves. And it's difficult if you really are used to doing something frequently, to listen to your body and take a rest. And I don't mean to talk about your father, but it is an issue if that's your habit, that's your routine.
Totally. And that was him. He would go for a long walk every day, but that's not exercise.
No.
Only swimming is exercise. You know what I mean? And so then it was like lifting heavy things, and he'd hurt his back, and they'd do it again. We said, God, just stop, because it was ultimately his life. He's the one that wanted to move. So, I'm 56. I'm not exactly a 30-year-old here. To me, and every client I've ever had, we spend the first few weeks writing stuff. We don't do anything in the world. I go, just figure out, what do you really want here? So you're right. Our competition is with ourselves. And I mean, there's some people who are 60 and trying to win their age group, whatever. That's of zero interest to me. But if you're trying to win life, meaning live a successful life and do things for a long time and be able to run for a while, it's going to mean that you can't run some days. It's going to mean that you're going to take breaks. If you talk to every professional athlete out there, they don't mention the word recovery in the first 5 minutes, I'd be very surprised. They are hyper focused on recovery, because recovery allows them to train more effectively. Yeah. Well, we have to apply that kind of thinking to, if you're 65, 70, 75, 80, 85. Are you building enough recovery? Are you training too hard and then not recovering? Are you training too hard and then eating crappy and not getting enough sleep and over caffeine? Those are the questions that I am helping people ask, and asking myself. If I want to keep running, if that's my goal, if my goal was to win, I would push the crap out of myself and probably do it for the next 5 years and then never run again. But if my goal is to be that 75-year-old woman who crossed my finish line, I got to do less now. I can't push my ass off today and go pushing, even though I have no business, and then going to my job that's stressful, et cetera, et cetera. I got to monitor. I can't eat Big Macs and, whatever. So you got to kind of look at your whole life and go, really, what are you trying to do here? That's the goal.
Yeah, and one of the things I appreciated in your book, and you refer to, is the community of people who you do whatever exercise with. You frequently talk about stopping and talking to people and so on. And I find that with older athletes, is they just love talking to each other and comparing stories.
Damn right. This is why ultra running is its own animal to me, because like that half marathon I just ran, I mean, you chat a little bit, but everyone's got their watches on and their headphones on, and it's just sort of this thing. Trail running, it's very lonely. A lot of it, you're on your own on a trail. You're by yourself. I mean, sometimes in the last one I did, at the Lake Sonoma 55K, there were many times where I didn't see anybody even. Like, I'm alone on the trail going, am I on the right trail? You know what I mean? Looking for markers because I think I'm lost. But then I'm having a hard day, and I'm kind of walking up this super steep hill. There was like no flats. This almost made me insane. No flats. And and there was also running 100K that same day. So here comes a 100K runner in the lead, one of the top women. She's coming the opposite way, and I'm getting my ass kicked. She comes walking. She stops And she goes, "Are you okay? I've got food in my pack. Do you want some?" I swear to God, I go, "Would you go win your damn race? What are you worried about me for? I'm the 56-year-old bald guy. Leave me alone." You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but what other sport than ultra running would somebody, a contender, stop and go, "Do you need anything?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm just having a hard day, but I'll be fine." I'm like, this is the best thing ever. So there's been stories of like the two top guys. One guy gets off course, the other guy goes, "You took a wrong turn." I'm sure it'll get corporatized, and it already has a little bit, but there's something about ultra running that is its own thing, where it's a camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's very cool. It transcends politics, religion, everything. It's like human, man, and you're feeling it, and you're really hit bottom, and you're with other people. And I stopped reading the news about 7 months ago, but I guarantee you what's on the news today, if you contrast that to that, it's a whole cool thing.
Yeah.
And very necessary. So that kind of talking to other people, all the more reason, leave your watch at home.
Yeah.
Talk to people, get out there, move your body, push yourself, of course, but in the context of treating yourself well in all the parts of your life.
Yeah, and part of that, you clearly had a good relationship with your coach, Matt. Again, something I'm finding is that older athletes very often engage coaches to do what they want to do in the most efficient way, but also to enjoy, working with the other people that the coach is working with, and you have a whole nother community. And it seems to be a thing that is very much in demand, all different types of coaching.
Yeah, and I'll be clear, because I don't want your listeners going, "Oh, he hired a coach." This guy, $125 a month, basically worked on a Google Doc, and he would just sort of go, "Here's what I want you to kind of hit this week." It was not a get up in the morning, a coach. This was a guideline. He basically taught me how to create a versatile, adaptable training regimen. He knew that I wasn't trying to win a race. I was trying to finish my first ultramarathon. I had never done it before. I was terrified. I had run those 2 marathons. This was 24 more miles than I'd ever run. In fact, he had me do a 50K as a training run, so that by the time I got to the start line of the 50-miler, the longest I had ever run was 31 miles. I had 19 more miles to run that day than I had ever run in my life. The step after 31 miles was, this is the longest I have ever run in my life, and I had 19 more miles to go. So it wasn't $5,000 at this pro coach in these gyms. It was a guy who would call me once every couple of weeks and go, "How's it going? You good? Okay, cool. Yeah, here's the thing. Check on the Google Doc." And I had a speaking engagement. He said, "Just either don't run or just run a few miles. Slow down. On this day, eat some the gels. On this day, do a peanut butter jelly. Play with a little bit of food changes, see how your body reacts." It was just that. It was like guidelines. It was very cool. It was very minimally, to his credit. I mean, he was a genius. He got me thinking about tons of stuff. That's why I give him so much credit in the book, because he got me losing that militancy and that chart kind of mindset and going, "It's okay." And it's a whole, it was a weird thing. Crossing that finish line was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's inspiring. The run that you manage is Mendocino?
The Mendocino Coast 50K.
And it's next month in April.
April 19th.
Great.
Yeah, it'll be in its 8th year. Yeah, it's sold out every year. I have no social media in this damn thing. It's the coolest thing, because I just email whoever's on my list. It's sold out in 4 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, I have 143 people on a wait list still, and it's just the coolest thing. I mean, it's a cool race. I got to tell you, I do really nice stuff for it. Cool hats and hoodie sweatshirts and all that. And it's a absolutely stunning course. And I'm in this little town. I probably have 10 locals, but the rest are out of 15 states this year. I've had people from the UK, South Africa, Japan. It's not a marquee race. I cap it at 150 runners. I don't go over that, and I don't get pros. It's not a qualifier. I have food and beer for everybody, even if you come to watch. And you're running along a river, and then you're in the redwoods, and then you're by a waterfall, and then you come out and break on the Pacific Ocean. And I mean, it's just stunning course. And I basically run the exact same run for 8 years almost entirely.
Wow, that's wonderful. Sid, thank you very much for speaking with me. How can people find you?
The best place to go is my website, sidgarzahillman.com.
Okay.
Or Small Step Intensive is my coaching. But yeah, sidgarzahillman.com. You can get to anything else from that. My podcast, which I just stopped, but it's all the episodes are there. And then, YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Sid. Thanks.
So nice talking to you.
We'll talk again. Cheers.
Okay. I'd love to.